Welcome to Just Asia, AHRC TV's weekly human rights program. These are the headlines. Pakistan's top court dismisses clemency appeal of mentally ill death row inmate. Event held to discuss Pakistan human rights in Geneva. Suharto-era victims still awaiting justice in Indonesia. South Korean victim of police force dies in coma. More activists summoned by Thai police for attending Constitution event. Urgent appeals from Sri Lanka and Indonesia. Welcome to AHRC TV's Just Asia. I am Julia Roblando. This week, Just Asia begins with a Pakistan update regarding the execution of mentally ill Imdad Ali. Pakistan's Supreme Court rejected his mercy appeal and has set his execution for Tuesday, October 4th. The Supreme Court decision arrives despite four United Nations human rights experts, the special rapporteurs on extrajudicial executions, on torture, on the independence of judges and lawyers, and on the right of everyone to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, having urged authorities in Pakistan to halt Imdad Ali's execution. Ali is suffering from schizophrenia and has been diagnosed as medically insane. The court dismissed Mr. Ali's appeal of clemency, saying that a large proportion of Pakistani prisoners suffer from mental illness and that they cannot let everyone go. The Supreme Court also dismissed the clemency appeal of another death row inmate, paraplegic Abdul Basit. The jail authorities were confused as to how to hang a man in a wheelchair, however, so they sent an application to the President of Pakistan that until special arrangements are made, they cannot hang Basit. The Asian Human Rights Commission deplores the decision of the Supreme Court to proceed with the hanging of a mentally ill man. It will set the wrong precedent in the annals of judicial history and shall amount to judicial murder. It is a clear violation of the UN safeguards guaranteeing protection of the rights of those facing the death penalty. In other Pakistan news, on September 20th, the Asian Legal Resource Center, sister organization to the Asian Human Rights Commission, held a side event during the 33rd session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva on the systematic killings of Pakistani lawyers and human rights activists. The event was moderated by AHRC's senior researcher, Mr. Basir Naveed. The participant speakers expressed their concern on the situation of human rights in Pakistan. They deplored the systematic killings of lawyers, particularly in Balochistan, where 73 lawyers were killed in a suicide bomb recently, calling it a planned attack on the crème de la crème of society, showcasing the vindictive designs of the establishment. With the world's attention now on the region due to the China-Pakistan economic corridor, the issue of enforced disappearances had begun to find new voice through these lawyers. The state, fearing international backlash, thus commenced a systematic crackdown. To conclude, the speakers urged the UN to hold a probe into the planned killings of lawyers in Balochistan, to ban all defense and military aid to Pakistan until a complete restoration of human rights is guaranteed, to ensure blasphemy and other discriminatory laws are abolished in Pakistan, and that justice institutions are properly developed in the country. Moving to Indonesia, 32 years of the Suharto dictatorship saw the arrests of many student and youth activists due to their criticism of the regime. Suharto used the military, police, and intelligence agencies to forcibly arrest and detain the activists, who were then tortured and faced inhumane treatment. Today, 18 years after Suharto stepped down, those activists are still waiting for justice and remedy. The activists expected that the political reform after Suharto will bring significant change and ensure that similar abuses would not recur. They expected justice. Just Asia presents the experience of one such activist Mr. Ken Budha Kusumandaru, who was arbitrarily arrested, detained, and tortured by security forces under Suharto.
So, because this movement was getting bigger and bigger, Suharto decided to crack down on this movement. And then they accused all the democratic activists behind this movement as communists. And on that pretext, they cracked down heavily on us, and they identified my organization at the time, the Indonesian Student Solidarity, as part of this being communist, and they targeted us for arrest. It was, I forget, it was Wednesday in Kalibata. There's a place where I was supposed to make a contact for because we have to move around in our hiding place. I was supposed to make a contact who would provide other safe house, but this contact was actually it turned out that he was actually an intelligence officer in disguise. So I was arrested, and then I was taken to one of the military bases. At first, they forced me to show where my other friends were hiding. They slapped me in the head and they punched me in the back. After sometimes I cannot continue to resist, and then I gave up some of my friends. After one safe house had been raided, the military officers found out that there was another safe house that I knew of. So then they forced me again to give up this other safe house. So same treatment. Even on the very first day when I was being brought to this facility, the person who seems to be some kind of high-ranking military officers, because everyone else just saluted him and called him commanders. He told me that I cannot rely on human rights, because in this building there is no human rights. There is only the army.
Next, in South Korea, farmer Baeknam Ki finally died on September 25th after being in a coma for 316 days. The 69-year-old was shot by a water cannon during a farmer's protest on rice prices on 14th November 2015. Baek had come to Seoul from his hometown of Bosong, South Jeolla Province, to participate in the protests against youth unemployment, soaring rice prices, and poverty. Starting on the afternoon of November 14th, the demonstrations were the largest in the downtown Seoul, with 130,000 protesters since the candlelight protests of 2008. When participants attempted to march toward Gwanghwamun Square, the police set up vehicle barriers, forcing the protesters to disperse by firing water cannons. According to the operating manual, the cannon should be aimed at the chest or below so as not to injure protesters. On that day, however, police officers fired the water cannon at Baek's head and kept hitting his upper body even after he had fallen down and severely hit his head. Baek was taken to the emergency room in Seoul National University Hospital, where he underwent brain surgery but remained in a coma. Although Baek's death resulted in calls by the prosecutors and police for an autopsy to clarify the cause of death, his family and friends fought vehemently to stop the law enforcement agencies from snatching Baek's bodies. Civil society defined Baek's death as another case of brutal state violence by the Park Geun-hye administration to break up unarmed public demonstrations. In Thailand, police have issued summons to 5 individuals for attending a constitution-related event in Khon Kaen province. According to Thai Lawyers for Human Rights, 3 student activists, a former politician, and 1 professor have been accused of violating the NCPO order banning a political gathering of 5 persons or more. Issued on September 23rd, the summons required the 5 to report to Khon Kaen Police Station on September 28th. On 31st July 2016, all 5 of them had attended a public discussion called Talk for Freedom on the Draft Constitution, organized by student activists on Khon Kaen University. 6 others had been summoned for attending the same event earlier. 3 young activists, 1 local land rights defender, and 2 human rights documentation officers from TLHR. Finally, the Urgent Appeals Weekly features 3 cases from Sri Lanka and Indonesia. In Sri Lanka, the Asian Human Rights Commission called for an immediate inquiry into the death of Raviraj Kavichandran, who the police claim committed suicide by hanging himself on the night of his arrest at the Pusilawa police station. Raviraj's family members claim he was beaten up at the police station. 2 police officers on duty have so far been suspended. In Indonesia, the independent team set up to look into information on the alleged involvement of high-ranking police and military personnel in the illegal drug trade, as disseminated by human rights defender Haris Azhar, was unable to find any concrete links. Also in Indonesia, Mr. Asep Sunandar was tortured to death by police officers of Cianjur Police Resort. Asep and 2 of his friends were arrested without any arrest warrant and were not granted access to a lawyer during their interrogation. The police tortured Asep to obtain a confession and then tried to close the case by providing money to the family to avoid prosecution. That is all for this episode of Just Asia. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia or www.alrc.asia/justasia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.